name is Robert Fish. I teach at Dawson High School in Maryland, and it's my privilege to introduce this next clinician to you this morning. And I know that you'll enjoy this and have a lot of great information, so I don't want to delay. Mr. Frank Chappell has been a percussion educator here in Texas band director for over 20 years, and the last 14 of those years he's been percussion director at Keller High School. He's been an invited clinician at 2015 TBA, 2016 Midwest, 2017 OBA, and 2017 TMEA conventions. He is a member of TMEA, TBA, PAS, Find Me Office Symphonia, and he is endorsed by Vic Firth, Remo, Dynasty, and Zildjian. He is the creator of the Packet, a fundamentals-based percussion curriculum, which he publishes through his own company, FEC4 Publications. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Packet, you're going to see some of that today, and I encourage you to talk with Frank about the Packet, because I think you'll find it's a very fresh perspective on percussion education and building the entire program 6 through 12. He has also recently started his newest venture, Chapel Percussion Consulting, so that would be great for you to contact him about other percussion needs as well. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Frank Chappell.
Back in the room, yes, awesome. All right. First off, I didn't ask him to say that about the packet and all that, so I appreciate the plug. I know you don't believe me, but that actually I did not ask him to do that. All right, a couple things I want to say before I start. Thank you to TMEA. It's an honor to be able to come here and speak at such an amazing convention. We all know this is the biggest one basically on earth for music educators, and it's always an honor to be here and do this. It's also very humbling to see this much talent in one room and to be the one that gets to stand up here and actually talk to you. I don't take that lightly. I want you to know that, and so I'm very humbled and honored that you're here today to hear me speak. Thank you to Neil at Zildjian and Vic Firth for all his support. Mark Branson, I saw at Remo, Pete, Matt, and all the guys at Dynasty, thank you for everything you do to support me and all the kids. And they make great products, and I would highly recommend you take advantage of everything they have to offer. They're amazing people, not just amazing products. So I wanted to kind of thank them right away. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. If you're not familiar with this saying, this is from Proverbs 16:27. And the gist of it, as I understand it, is us as human beings, when we're bored, when we have nothing to do, mischief is going to find us. You don't have to go look for it. And it doesn't matter how old you are, it's going to find you. And so this could look very simply like a kid dropping a pencil in a concert bass drum, or it could be someone sneaking drugs and alcohol on a band trip. I mean, there's the spectrum. They'll come up with new and fun ways to get in trouble. And so when I was in high school, my high school program had less students in it than my percussion studio at Keller High School. It was, we were tiny, and we were ignored daily. So we would open up the winger cabinet doors and get behind it and just do stuff that had nothing to do with productive behavior. And so my perspective now is looking back at that and seeing the stuff that we did and got away with. And why did we do that? Well, because nobody was talking to us. We were literally bored. So that's where the tie-in goes with the proverb to the idea behind it. And that's your band hall right there. Now, the real name of it is this. I want to talk about engagement, involvement, improving, buy-in factors, investing, all the things that you can do to get those students to buy into your program. And this doesn't have to be percussion, but it's what I do, so that's the perspective I'm going to come from. I've given this talk to non-percussion directors at Midwest. Most of them were not percussion directors. And I'm guessing there's a lot of percussion directors in here, so I'm going to try to balance it. I may say some things that you're like, yeah, we know that. And then hopefully I'll say some things that like, okay, you may have not known this, or you may have not known that. So hopefully I can hit everybody's wish list. We'll skip that. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at is, we saw the flames going up. We need to identify, I guess, what the dangers or the reasons that we need to not have bored students. And so these were things that I just kind of have witnessed over my time. Number one, how many of you spend 90% of your time with like 10% of your kids? It's that distraction level. They're going to get your attention. They want you to recognize them. Okay, I feel like every student wants to be wanted. They all want structure and they all want discipline. Even if they don't know it, they do want that. They want to belong, but at the same time, they don't know what they want. Because they're, well, I call them idiots, but in a very loving way. I promise you, it's very loving. But they just don't know what they want, right? They're thinking 1 second ahead in their life. So the distractions are going to happen because they want you to recognize them. Okay, the attitude. You cannot get rid of an attitude because someone graduates. Like, you think the flu is contagious, okay? Watch what happens with bad attitude. It will never leave your band hall. So you have to kill that virus, or it will get passed down and passed down and passed down. So don't think because this senior's leaving, oh, finally, things are going to be good. No, it's not going to happen. Because people are watching and learning, and you need to be careful of that. Another obvious thing is poor musicianship. How many of you have seen a drum line single-handedly destroy a bandship? Like, it's pretty easily, okay? I think the drums have the most power of any instrument on the field. And so, and in the concert hall, and in anywhere you put them, poor musicianship can just wreak havoc on your program. Next things I would say for the dangers is how they treat your facility and your equipment. Okay, sticks thrown into the tiles, or graffiti on the drums, or they're going to do something to keep themselves occupied. And then you getting called down to the principal's office or the fine arts director's office because on the last trip some things happened that should have not happened, and now you're answering for their dumb choices. And you have to be careful of that because it's your livelihood on the line. And so, yes, you can be upset with them, but they're not going to be the one talking to the fine arts director when, 3 guys got busted with pots at Six Flags. So these are the kind of things that are very real world dangers for your program. Okay? And then fill in the blank is just whatever you want to add to the list. Okay? We all have our stories of things like that. So, for all you percussionists, a lot of you can understand this. And this is what did we just change volume there? This is what I talked about, especially at Midwest. If you've never sat in the back of the room for 2 hours and done nothing, you have to try to put yourself in their shoes. Because you would not care either. And so that's something that if you're a non-percussionist, I would really get you to go back there and see what world is like in the very back of the band hall. And it can kind of change your perspective a little bit. All right, the ideal situation. Before we can start on this journey to where we want to go, we have to know where we're going. So you're going to have to sit down and decide, okay, what do I want my program to look like? Your program may be 98% there and you've got 2% left. You may be at 2% and you've got 98% to go. Well, it is what it is. And you have to decide where you want it to go. So that's your job. You sit down, you create the vision, and then let's talk about how we're going to reach that point. How do you make it to your vision? I can't stress enough the importance of goals. This is, it's almost cliche, but no situation can be improved without goals. It's not possible. You're going to be running around in circles, working as hard as you can and going nowhere. So you've got to establish the goals inside and outside the classroom, and that creates the map that's going to take you to that ideal situation. And so when I look at these goals, I see these goals as tangible. This is I can hold on to a piece of paper that says, here's where we're going. Here's our goals. And then these goals can create landmarks along the way. So you're going in the right direction the entire time. So the overall goals to me are the long-term goals. The landmarks are short-term. It can be by next week we're going to do this. And then by December, we're going to do this. It is what it is in terms of long-term, short-term. But you have to have those. If you're working without goals, then you're literally running in circles. And I draw a thing for my students. It's a line. This is student A, and I put 500 hours. That's just I just make up a time. And I say this person practiced 500 hours, and they've gone this far. I'm drawing on the dry erase board, not the chalkboard anymore, but the dry erase board. And then I say this is student B, and I draw circles. And then I say that was 500 hours. They both care the same amount. They both practice 500 hours. Player A is 10 miles down down the road and player B has barely left the parking lot. And I'll ask them, why is that? And they'll say, well, player A had goals. They had direction. They were always moving forward. And so that's, to me, the easiest way to understand why you have to have goals. Because you're all going to do the 8-hour rule, and hopefully no more than that. So you've got to use the time you have, but it's who uses it the best is who gets the most out of it. Here's some very generic goals. And these almost seem like no-brainers. But these are what I call extrinsic goals. Inside the classroom, but they're extrinsic. You can see them pretty easily. They're pretty obvious. It's pretty stock stuff. Watch the conductor, play in time. All the things we want them to do. But then we get into the intrinsic goals. And to me, any intrinsic motivator is more powerful than every extrinsic motivator that you can ever put in front of them. And so extrinsic, we talk about culture, standards of excellence, commitment to practice, like be self-motivated, be a hard worker. Okay, the things that drive them from the inside out, to me, is almost more essential than what's going on in the band hall. So my first step is develop the right environment. Okay? Like I said, every student you have wants to feel safe. They want to be wanted. They want to be accepted. They want structure. They want all these things. So I have to create a safe and productive environment for them to function in. Because they're not going to do it on their own. They'll thrive in it, but they won't develop it. So I have to make it a point to create this environment for them. And I see this environment as being a place where they can have the confidence to take risks. Because they're at the age where stepping out of their comfort zone is maybe the worst thing you can ask them to do. So if you can give them a safe place to fail, that's the only way they're going to improve. And along with that, it sets them up to accept the challenges of getting better. And in the summertime, when I teach drum corps, we always say, getting to the 90% is easy. Like, that's just sweat. That's no big deal. But getting from 90% and past, that's the challenge. Like, that's where the real work starts. Because it's mental. It's intrinsic. It's all the factors that don't just involve mindless sweat. And so you've got to set them up to be able to be ready to accept those challenges. Conformity. Conformity always gets a bad rap to me. And I saw this study that I thought was done in 2008, and then I found out it was from the 1950s, and it blew my mind. And it blew my mind as a parent first, and then as an educator. And if you've never heard of it, I would suggest you just go look it up. But in a very quick synopsis, they had groups of teenagers, and 9 of them knew what the answer was what they were going to answer, and 1 of them did not. And they did all these groups. And they asked them questions that were so blatantly obvious of what the right answer was. And over 90% of them chose the wrong answer on purpose because everybody else in the group did. And they're like, well, you knew the right answer. Yes, but everyone else said it, and I didn't want to go. So they knowingly chose the wrong thing just because other people in the group did. And that blew my mind. So then I thought, well, can't you do the same in reverse? What if every 9 kids chose the right thing? That 10th kid's going to choose the right thing just because of the pressure or conformity. So you can turn conformity into your own way. Positive traditions. I've never understood why traditions are so taboo to touch. Like, if you show up at a school and they have traditions that are dumb and put a bad light on the program, then you can easily go, hey, remember that thing you did yesterday? That's done. There you go. That's dead. It's your program. You don't have to do something just because it's been done. And really, all you'll deal with it is about a year or 2 of parents who are upset, and then they'll move on. And then you're fine. The kids won't care after about 2 weeks. I promise you. Especially if you give them things to replace it with. But traditions can be very dangerous because people feel like they're untouchable. And I've never quite understood that philosophy. Okay? Continuing on in the environment. This is maybe the most driving force in our entire band program. And that is setting standards and expectations. I can't tell you how important this is. Besides curriculum, I think the standards is the second most important part of our job as a band director. And we remind them of this standard as often as possible and how it applies to everything they do. So the way I look at that is, here's some examples of questions you have to ask and then teach them. How are we going to treat the equipment? How are we going to treat each other? When we get to a contest, how do we get off the bus? How do we unload our equipment? How do we line up to go to warm-up? How do we speak in public? How do we rehearse? How are we going to treat the parents that are helping us every day? Okay, how do we, this list can go on and on and on. And so I strongly suggest that you start thinking of every single thing you do in your program and put a standard to it. And then tell them over and over and over, here's how we're going to do this. Because again, they won't do it on their own. But if you tell them, they'll do it. I promise you they'll do it. And this will permeate into everything else. If you want clean rolls, then you need to teach them how to get off the bus. Because caring is caring. I don't care if it's about their playing or about how their uniform's put on when they get off a bus. If they care, they care. And it's going to show up in every aspect of your program. So that's extremely important. The next thing is the culture. What do you want the culture of your program to be? Well, that's up to you. You have to decide that. Are we just going to have a lot of fun? Are we going to work hard and have fun? Are we going to work hard and be miserable and try to win everything? It's up to you. I mean, there's no right or wrong, but you're going to have to decide what it's going to be. Your brand, I'll show you in a second, but I strongly believe in branding your program, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. And that's like, you think of the geniuses that have done this, like Apple. I mean, you talk about branding a business. It's phenomenal what they've done. And I believe that half of how they look has led to all the success they've had. I mean, if you see a phone that you're attracted to, you're going to want to use it. And they've been incredible at that. If you get kids to wear your brand in school, I'm 15 years old, I'm walking to math class, and my shirt proudly announces I'm in the drum line or I'm in the band, then they made a choice to tell the rest of the school they're in band. So they are proud of that fact. And so that pride, you can instill that in them, and then once they grab it, it's one of the strongest motivators out there. Because now they're going to care about if they're wearing the right socks with the band uniform, because they have pride. And you can do that through them being willing to wear your clothes or whatever it is around people that are not in your program. So here's when I look at brand. It's your culture made visible is like the kind of way I came up with it. So these are random pictures that I took over a couple different years. And so like we had percussion class, and I was like, hey, all of you with that sweatshirt, come stand in here. And I just took pictures of them. You'll notice every shirt, hat, pajama pants, scarf, like we sell everything. Like we're like LL Bean here. If I can sell it and they'll wear it, I'll put it out there. So we have a whole catalog that's on a Google form that they can go on and order stuff from. And so the bunch of them had their jackets on that day because it actually was cold. So I lined them up and told them to take their pictures. Here they are. This is like 3 years worth of clothing from hoodies and shirts, and he's wearing the shorts. That's why he has a cute little leg kick up. He's trying to show you the shorts. We've got another jacket there. We've got some hoodies, old year hoodies, some other, so you'll just see, all this stuff, it all says Color Drumline on it. That's the brand. And so, for us, I decided we're not going to have shirts that say, your girlfriend likes my beats better. Or all these shirts you see, we don't do that. Our shirts say Color Drumline. And that's it. Because that's who we are, and that's our brand. Now, they like the clothes, they like being in band, they understand what they're supposed to do, so now what do? Well, we have the sizzle, here's the steak. You have to make them good. The power of being good is crucial in your ability to keep kids in your program, okay? Giving them t-shirts, having fun, going on a trip, that'll get them in the door. But eventually they'll look around and be like, this is a mirage. There's no substance here. And then they're going to leave. or they're not going to be good, and then they're not going to want to do it anymore because they're really good at Call of Duty. So why would I go be in band for 2 hours if I'm not good when I can go play a game that I'm really good at? So you have to get them to start being better if you want to keep them. And so this power of good, that I call it, this is what it looks like. And you've seen this before, I bet. It's a triangle that has no start or stop. So in other words, some of my kids are the hardest working kids ever. And so they just are made to work hard. So through their efforts, they're going to get better, and then they'll enjoy that they're getting better, and they'll work harder. So they get rewarded for it. Some of the kids come in because they're having fun. Like, hey, I heard you're going to Macy's. I want to join band. It's like, yes, we are. So they'll get in there. Then we put them to work. Then they find out, whoa, I'm getting good at this. And now they're stuck in the loop. Some kids are good already because we know those kids that have been touched when they were born, and they can do stuff that none of us can do, and we just have to accept it. And then they enjoy doing what they've been given, so then they'll start working harder because they're in a group of other people that are working hard. So wherever you get them into this triangle, you got to do it. And then once you get them in there, you can keep them there. And it becomes a snowball effect that you can then just step back and let them ride this snowball effect. So how do we make them better? Okay, well for me, it all starts with the curriculum. So these are some things I feel like a curriculum should be. Logical, obviously, and easy to grasp. You don't want them to be practicing stuff and not know where they're headed. It's got to be relevant. If it doesn't work for them, they're not going to do it. Right? They're very selfish. We all were at that age, and that's just how we develop. We start really selfish, and then when we get older, we learn about other people. So some of them are still stuck in that selfishness stage. So they need to know, what's it going to do for me? Well, so you make it relevant. You make it attractive. You make it something that when they see it, they want to be a part of it, or they want to open it or touch it or whatever. It fits. It's adaptable. So it's not only for a certain group of kids, okay? They have parents. Most of them aren't paying for anything they do. So you've got to be able to convince the parents why this is a smart thing. So it's got to be financially feasible. Some of them have 5 kids in band. So you've got to tell them why this makes sense. It needs to grow with them so they're not buying a book every year of their life, because that goes back to the financial problem. The parents are going to, hey, time out. We just bought 3 books. What are you doing? And then you can actually slide it into the culture. If the curriculum is part of the culture, then it becomes cool to practice. And that's something that is a trick, but you can make that happen very easily. Okay, so one thing about it, I feel like there's got to be enough material. You can never have them say, I don't have anything to practice. They won't even walk up to you and ever say that. And I'm sure we've been with that before. Hey, I finished that page you gave me, now I don't have anything to do. So it's well, you know what? Here's all of it. Now go practice. So there is no, I don't know what I'm doing. So I call this the fuel to the fire. This is what gets them going in the direction you're sending them. It's got to allow them to achieve their goals. Those goals we set inside and out, the curriculum has to allow them to achieve that. And so for me, wait for it, this is our curriculum. This is what it looks like. And this started only for my kids, because I got tired of living out of my backpack and throwing flam pages all over the room. And so I just brought it all together and decided we're going to get the whole feeder pattern on the same path, 6th through 12th grade. And it's worked great. It did exactly what I was hoping it to do. So if you're going to build your own curriculum, if you're a trumpet player and you want to build a curriculum, or if you want to see how I built mine, I'm just going to kind of show you some ways I thought building the curriculum made sense. Before you start, you are going to have to sit down and make decisions. And then you're going to have to stick with them. Because when your decisions get put in print, they're there. So I sat down and I forced myself to answer some questions before I sent it out into the real world. So some of these questions were, what do I believe are the fundamental building blocks of percussion? Got to start somewhere. So I came up with these 5. And all of these actually have subtitles that you don't see. Rhythm for me, besides being rhythm, was brain. Like, I'm going to use counting out loud to build their brains, to push their brains on how they view and see music. I'm going to use chops to build their strength and their speed. Like, if I play timpani, I need good single stroke rolls. Well, that's in the chop section. So I can take all the single stroke roll exercises and apply it straight to timpani, or my two mallet rolls, or concert bass rolls. It doesn't matter the instrument, it's the skill. Rudiments, I've got to learn how to control the sticks. I see rudiments as just control. You're just controlling and manipulating heights and sticking, and it's just, how do I control patterns? Obviously mallets, besides playing mallets, it's the music theory side. How is music put together? What's harmony? What are modes? Like, that's within the mallet section. And then drum set, for me, is also just coordination. Like, I may never play drum set, but if I'm going to mark time on a snare line, I better be able to know how to put my feet and hands together. And so there's no better place to do that to me than on a drum set. And they don't have to play drum set, but just working independence grids on a drum set will get them ready to march quads, because it's the same skills. So those are my 5 building blocks. Then I thought, okay, how are we going to approach these things? Well, counting. I've been in rehearsals where somebody will cut, count. All right, here we go. And it's like, well, you just yelled at them to count, and you didn't even tell them how to. So they're like, okay. And then we're playing again. And now they have no idea what you wanted them to do. So if you're going to, here's my deal I make with my kids. If I get to yell at you, I had to have taught you what I'm yelling at you about. Once I've done that, I'm now allowed to hold you accountable for what I've taught you. And they say, deal. So if you can tell me I've taught you this, then I get to yell at you about it when you're not doing it. So that's our deal. I never yell at them if I haven't already taught them how to do what I'm yelling about. So I said, okay, I need to teach them how to count. So here's what we came up with. We have 4 ways to count in our program. 6th through 12th grade. I don't care if you like one Iana, one Tita, Watermelon Man. It doesn't matter what you say, okay? I know some of you would fight me to the death over what words you're going to say when you count. I grew up one Iana. I teach one Tita. I think there is a peaceful uniting of nations that should easily happen between the two of them, okay? To me, counting is verbalizing rhythm. And if your kids can just go, perfect. There you go, you're counting. I use one Tita, but it doesn't matter to me which one you use. So I just want to make sure we know that up front. I put these 2 in the book because they're the most popular, in my opinion, of the 2 counting systems. So, count everything. We're going to look at this part, and we're going to see every single thing that's in the music. Okay? Now, we're about to participate. So, put the stuff down. Okay? You're going to clap with me, and we're going to practice 4 different ways to count. Here we go. So, shake it out like literally you're doing this. Okay. So, count everything. There are strengths to this. Notice I didn't put weaknesses. I try not to talk cons. I try to talk pros in this kind of stuff. So, this is what's important about counting everything. These are the times you need to do this. So here we go. We're going to clap that rhythm, but we're going to count everything you see under there. And if you're sitting next to an Iana person and you're not, just, again, enjoy the moment. Okay? Here we go. 1, 2, and clap, and clap. 1, 2, 3. Wait. 3, 4, 3. So they had to recognize everything there. And every rest got equal value to the notes. Nothing was, if I'd have counted that out loud and you didn't see the music, you would have had no idea what I was about to play. You would have not known there were rests there. Okay, now count what you hear. Count what you play. Well, this is important for them to self-analyze during practice sessions. Am I playing this correctly? They need to know that. Okay? They need to be able to internalize rests. So now, we're going to only count what your hands are hitting. 1, 2, and just do that. So now, you have to recognize and control space. And I would say 99% of the gray hairs you can count on my head come from space and percussion. Controlling space. Next. This is my favorite. Count the downbeats. So now we're going to work on only focusing on tempo for the pulse. We're going to learn how the rhythms are applied to tempo. Like, how do they apply to each other? We're going to learn how to coordinate foot tap or marking time to our hands. So we also say left, right when we do this. I'm going to learn how to develop feel, so especially for drum set guys. I'll have them just count the downbeats while you're playing. Don't count the rhythms. And then it's also a lot harder than it looks, which I like. So let's do that. We're just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, clap the rhythm. 1, 2, ready, go.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, how many of you started doing that and you went like this? Did anybody start this a little bit? Raise your hands. Don't lie. Yeah, that's called feel. And so we do that. And so if I count this one, sometimes it's even as major as we're going 1, 2, and we're like bouncing around the room. Okay? Because believe me, there are times when you watch our program and it's like, do their bodies actually move or are they just made that way? Like, do we want this? So we try to work feel and like move your body and relax. This is the best way to do that. Okay? Try this. Let's count left, right. So you're marking time. 1, 2, and left, right.
Left, right, left, right, left, right.
If you're going to say play to your feet and you've never done that to them, then you're not teaching them how to play their feet. So you got to do that. And then the last one is subdivide. And this is the one I hear yelled the most. You got to subdivide. And then you start again. And they're just like, oh, boy. And then they just keep going. And the space is just as bad as it was 10 seconds ago. So you have to teach them how to subdivide. If that's the rhythm you're playing, you've got to say 1 T theta, 2 T theta, 3 T, 4 T theta, 1 T, 2 T, 3 lolly, 4 T theta, 1. I got to teach them how to do that. Okay? So let's say that and clap the rhythm. 1, 2, and subdivide.
2, 10, 3, 4,
So now space has been annihilated. There is no space, right? All the space that the audience heard in their brains, it doesn't exist. And so that's what I teach them for eliminating space. So we have 4 ways to count. I had to come up with that before I printed it. How are we going to approach tempo? What's our philosophy? Well, I needed to decide this, so we're on the same page. Number 1 is my favorite. Slow tempos don't create problems, they expose them. So every time I slow something down a ton, and we're just falling apart, and they're dropping, I'm like, don't blame the tempo. It's not the tempo's fault, it's just showing you your faults more glaringly. So we do a lot of slow playing. Okay? Slower tempos, faster thinking, faster tempos, slower thinking. This to me came from more of a jazz drum set article that I read, where they talk about you're playing a really slow kind of blues thing, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm counting the triplets. My brain's working, even though that my hands are staying back. Then I'm marching the opener at 188. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like, I don't want that. So I want them to go 1, 3, 3, I want the time to get really slow so then they can feel where 1 and 3 is, and there's not so much panic going on. So that's something we talk about, and then cover the mat. The idea of just, if I hit with the mat, I shouldn't hear. And we work on that. Okay? And we can do this, we do this with 7th graders. It doesn't matter the age. You just introduce the concept. They're not as dumb as we think they are. You just introduce it, get them going on it, and I promise you they'll run with it. You don't have to wait till they're older to kind of understand this stuff. But if they're being told this at every grade level, now we're all speaking the same language. And that's what the curriculum does. And then how do we practice? We yell at them to go home and practice. That's very important for us. Well, if I don't teach them how to practice, then what are they going to do when they go home? So in our curriculum, it very clearly talks about how we're going to learn. We call it drumming. This is really single playing, like snare drum. Like I have a single surface, is the idea for that. And then multiple circles, so mallet and timpani. How are we going to learn these songs? Well, we're all on the same page on the process that we use. And then the last thing real quick is, how are we going to approach dynamics, blend in the ensemble? How are we going to understand that? Well, here's our heights chart. This heights chart is for our outdoor drumming, is what it was written for. But, because they now have a starting point for dynamics, and this isn't all of it. I couldn't give you the whole thing for free, so I just half of it. So, if you're playing a UIL piece that's 2 flutes and a snare drum, and it says mezzo forte on the snare drum, okay, they're saying triple piano, right? So they have to learn, okay, in this situation, mezzo forte is the same as my outdoor pianissimo. I'm going to play 1.5 inches, because that's what the ensemble situation calls for. So, but if you're speaking a language with them that they already understand, you can teach them how to relate their dynamics and their heights to the ensemble. So that's the idea behind the chart for us. Okay, these are the things it needs to do. So I'll kind of move quicker through here. It's got to be diverse. It's got to work for all your students, not just a select. So examples, a little easier page. We're working 8th reps, 8th notes. Then we bump it up. Now we're getting into 16 3-note permutations and combining them together. That's a little later on. A little later on, we're in 2-note permutations. We're doing some pass-offs with dynamics and all that good stuff. And then we eventually will get into playing 5s, playing 7s. How do you think about those kind of rhythms? So the curriculum has to be able to hit all the skill levels, wherever they are. Okay, it should be built on concepts. This is my opinion. I don't think you should teach them exercises, because then they're going to go home and learn that exercise. And then they're going to come back and ask for another exercise. So one concept is the grid. Most of you know what the grid is. The grid is not an exercise. It's a concept. Because they're like, how many grid books are out now? 20,000? Like, the grid book series is really long because this concept just keeps going and going and going. So by teaching them the grid, you're not teaching them an exercise, you're teaching them a concept. And I view concepts as doors that they didn't even know existed, that you just showed them. And now they can walk through and be like, whoa, the grid world, I didn't know this existed. So that's what a concept does. And it's the saying of, teach them to fish and they'll eat the rest of their life. Give them a fish, they'll eat for a day. If I give them an exercise, they're going to have something to play that day. But if I teach them a concept, now they're covered. So that's kind of the idea behind that. Understanding permutations and how those are created and how to play those, that's a concept. This is an old drum corps thing I started teaching in '95, and I've done it every year since. I came up with what I thought were 5 essential strokes to be able to play the music we needed to play in the summer. So I have all that in there, and they understand how to break down a rudiment to its core and then build it back up. And they can do that with any rudiments that they have. Okay, drum set grids. Okay, this is not an exercise. This is a concept. Creating all these grid patterns with your limbs. Expandable. So in other words, they're not getting bored. Well, in the book, we have 12 sticking systems that you can apply to any page in the rhythm section. So right hand lead, left hand lead, unlead, which is alternating, doubles, inverted doubles. We have all these ways that they can approach the same line on a page. So if there's 40 rhythm pages and there's 12 different ways to play each line, that's just a lot of stuff. I have no idea what the math is on that. But once they learn right hand lead, then we'll go into alternating. And then it's like, great, let's do left hand lead. Let's do left alternating. Let's do doubles. So you're taking the exact same rhythm and you're creating a whole new way to play it, and that just keeps expanding what you already have. Another idea here is you take just double verticals. Well, this one exercise, we can change them into permutations. We can change the dynamics. We can divide it into verticals versus permutations. We can play it in windshield wipers, which I'll explain to you later what I call that. We can do it in major, minor keys, modes. What if a kid is practicing this and come up and says, what's a mode? Aha, now, here we go, I got you. So now you get to introduce modes to them. It's like, whoa, I didn't. So it's expandable. You get to take them places without adding another page to what they're doing. In my drum set section, I went and figured out ways to apply every rhythm sheet to the drum set. So that just expanded the rhythm section. So for here, like this sample is doing different Latin feet patterns. So I'll do Latin feet, and then I'll play the line out of the book. Down here, I'll do like a ride hi-hat pattern out of the Independence grid, and with my foot and hand, I'll play the line out of the book. I'll split it up linearly, so I'm moving through the lens. I'll play it as a groove. I'll take a line and then, okay, invent a groove out of that line. We'll play it as a solo. So groove and then play a solo based on this line out of the book. Here's like, okay, how do I take eighth notes and turn them into swing? How do I take, I didn't do that one. And then the 16th notes, we do like a hip hop shuffle kind of feel. So it's to teach them how to take all the rhythms they know and add more ways to do it. And I think left foot clave's in there, and I think there's a few other things that I skipped. Okay, it's got to be relevant. Okay, we play a lot of puttitas. So we've got a bunch of puttita pages in there, and so it's relevant to what they're playing. We like to play all the rudiments created through the grid, so cha-cheeses and cha-chatas and cha-cha-chas and all that stuff. So there's got to be exercises for them to work to that. Okay, all the advanced rudiments. They want to go march drum corps. They want to get in their college line or whatever it is. They need to know all these rudiments. So all these rudiments are listed over 2 pages so that it's relevant to what their goals are. We have one-handed rolls, lateral builders. They want to play more advanced marimba literature. Well, they've got to have the skills that that literature demands. So it's got to be in the curriculum. Okay, they want to make the jazz band. Well, they have to learn very basic grooves. So we get them started on the basic grooves, and then that sends them off to start working on the things they need to be in jazz band, percussion ensemble. We have drum set in our indoor line, so all those things. And then this is a big one for me. There's 600 lines in the book for assignments charts. So in other words, you can have assignments from 6th grade, and then 4 pages later, your 10th grade assignments are there. And you can see your entire life as a percussionist rolling before your eyes. And that day when they come up to you and be like, man, I suck. And it's like, well, hold on. Like, no, you don't. It's like, well, I can't get these parallels at 172. It's like, okay, let's go to your book. Look at this. 2 years ago, you were struggling at 190. 190. At 90. Right? They're going backwards. At 90. And now, this long later, you're pushing one. Are you kidding me? You're awesome. Like, go practice. Like, you're fine. Just go back and look where you've come from. Sometimes we forget how far we've come, and we only focus on what's happening at that moment. I know I do that a lot. I never keep track of how far my guys have come. I just look at what was wrong for that rep, and I know I got to stop doing that. Make it accessible. So, it's got to be out there. They're very big on that. So I have my curriculum. What do? I've got to apply it into their daily lives. Let's speed up here. So in percussion class, it's pad, pad, pad. I mean, I believe that you can't take a mallet player and make them a rudimental drummer as easy as you can take a rudimental drummer and make them a mallet player. We can argue all day about it. That's just how I believe it. I grew up Marty Hurley, rudimental snare drumming, and I made All-State for 3 years, memorizing my mallet pieces. I had no idea how to read it. But my hands were better than most of the other people. And I just took my hands and walked to the next instrument. So you've got to build their hands. It starts there. They've got to have great hands. So pad, pad, pad is what I believe. Incorporate the curriculum. You have a daily and weekly agenda, and keep the big picture. Where do you want them to go? You got to keep that in mind as you move through that. In their band class, a lot of directors don't want to hear the pad. So 2 options for that. A, you get something like the Remo silent stroke, where they're drumming along on pad, and it blends in with the ensemble, and the directors can then ignore them, even though they're working on stuff you want them to work on. That's a great way to do something like that. Or they work on mallets, because that's a more pleasing thing for a lot of non-percussionists to hear. But if you're a band director who's not a percussionist, please hear this. Stop rolling on concert F. That does nothing for a percussionist. Okay, and it doesn't even help you tune your band. So if you're going to do F around the room, when you get to them, they play green scales. And then it goes on to the next instrument. Or they're on 4 mallets going chum, 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 playing F and C or whatever. You've got to give them relevant mallet things to do, Because I'm telling you, I've seen more drool hit a marimba rolling concert F than any other time in a band room. And it's just a waste of time. I'd rather you send them out in the hall with a pad than have them roll concert F. So please consider other ways to do that. And auxiliary instruments. If you're doing articulation exercises, put them on tambourine. Put them on, like if you want them to play in time when you're March and April and you never work on them playing in time, then how can you know they're going to play in, like, you can't yell at them mid-April for being out of time on the march if you've never worked on it with them. Like, you have to help them become what you want them to be. So articulation stuff, tambourine, crash, I mean, anything you feel like they're struggling. Or if you're happy with them, send them out of the room. Because that's also very productive for them if you trust them. And that's hopefully what we'll get to someday. In concert band, more stuff. Consider an ensemble piece on your concerts. Make it fun. Like we do a lot of boom whacker stuff with our bottom band is actually a percussion ensemble because we have too many percussionists that fit in our band classes. So they do, a lot of the times at concerts, they do like boom whacker pieces. So we'll pick something that's not written for boom whackers and we'll put it on boom whackers. And so they're sporting stuff and having a great time. The audience loves it. And they have something to do. Or target what you need. Mallet ensemble, drumming ensemble. Just let them have a voice. I'll usually pick 2 or 3 pieces that I'd be okay with, and I let them vote. Because then I can say, you voted on this, go practice. Like I can yell at them for not practicing because they voted on it. So it's a great secret weapon for something like that. Keeping them involved in marching band. You got to put them in with your warm-ups. If you want the brass to listen back, and you've never warmed up together, they're not going to know they're not going to know how to listen back. Like you got to teach these skills. You got to reference the curriculum, of course, push the important skills, which is basically the relevant skills, and put their show music in there if you can. Make it relevant, make it important to what they're doing. Another thing we do that's been really cool this year is we do what's called full drumline warm-ups. I'll have 55 kids warming up at a football game. What am I going to do with 55 percussionists at a football game? Like, I don't want to make these 12 go sit on the track and watch. Like, what are you going to feel like if you're all dressed up and now you're just sitting watching everyone else get to play? Like, no, we're not doing that. So we came up with, I hate for this to sound like a little salesman thing, but this is the next thing my publishing company is doing. And it's a series called The Musical Parking Lot. This is the first volume. And the idea is how can I get every kid in my program playing on the same warm-up, but then differentiate the warm-up ahead of time so we're not rewriting their parts and making them feel like they're not good. Okay? So just some examples I'll play for you super quick just to get an idea of what I'm talking about. So this is one of them, blue space. You can see the parts are all differentiated already. It's going to crossfade in a minute so we can do it. So we're playing in a full mode, lots of beats, working on stuff. It's a progressive warm-up. It's in 12/8. Then I can play 50 kids on that at a football game, no problem. Okay, another one, little 16th note, 2-mount chromatic thing. So in summer band, we're like pounding out music all the time and playing as an ensemble, even if we're waiting on the closer to show up, which is also a nice thing to keep them busy. You can see here it's 4 mallets, double verticals, but then 2 mallet parts in there as well. Let's see over 3 seconds. So they're marching, their feet are in 2, their hands are in 3, so they're learning how to great way to keep your guys involved and entertained without making them stand around while they're waiting for everyone else to warm up. Okay, in jazz band, again, put them in the warm-ups. Use the grid. It doesn't have to be style all the time. Change up the style. Put kids on auxiliary percussion. I would say take as many kids as you have interest, put them in jazz band. They don't all have to play drum set. And Mr. Arjuna Contreras in his clinic yesterday made a great point that I loved. When you're warming up, 3 kids can be on ride and hi-hats, and that's it. And there was something like the Zildjian cymbals where they've taken out almost all the mass of the cymbal, and it's like a practice pad cymbal that feels great. You can have kids playing that and warming up, and the rest of the band's not going to hear them, but they're involved, like they're doing stuff. And maybe they're not ready to be on the drum set, but they're doing it along with you, and then next year they're ready. So I heard him talk about that, and that was a great thing for me, I thought, to add into the idea of taking more kids, as most kids as possible. Okay, create a mountain spot, a vibe spot. Play the head, play the melody. Like, it doesn't have to be, they don't have to solo if they're not ready to. Okay, objective sheets. Our entire feeder pattern uses objective sheets. And basically, they're exactly what they are. You hand the kid an objective sheet at the beginning of the 6 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever, and you have the entire 6 or 9 weeks spelled out for them right then and there. So it guides their progress. It gives you a chance to grade stuff. Right, so you got to turn in grades. It incorporates the curriculum. They can do video and audio pass-offs with something like Google Drive. They video themselves at home, dump it in their folder. I can see it, and we don't have to do it in class. The parents can see what they're working on. So if their little darling is not doing as well, their 8th chair, and they want to know why, it's like, well, why don't you grab their objective sheet and let's see how they're doing. Oh, it's blank. What are they supposed to? It's okay. Let's talk about that. So it allows them to see what's going on. So here's a couple real quick. Beginner one. This is right before the Christmas concert here, winter concert. Had assignments out of the book, clown team, some mallet stuff. So they had all of the stuff they had to do that 6 weeks was all right there laid out for them. Okay, here's one for our JV class is divided into 2 levels, A and B. This was the B group. So we had some rhythm stuff, rudimental stuff, mallet stuff, and this was all their pass-offs that they had to work on that 6 weeks. All right, last thing, reaching them in their world. They are technology natives. They have grown up with technology built into their systems, okay? I am not a technology native. Like, technology became part of mainstream after I was already growing up. So we have to understand that even though for us, our first instinct may not be to tag something and put it on Facebook, okay? I'm always like, why did you put that on Facebook? It's like, because I didn't think about it. Like, I was just enjoying it. So that's not something I think about immediately. They do. So we have to kind of come join them in their world. We can't force them out of it as much as we want to. So you can use it for motivation improvement, apps, Skype lessons. I mean, get creative. You may have kids that, I have a 7th and 8th grader that he's been writing music for a while. He writes ensembles and stuff. Now, they're not the best ensembles you'll play, but he's doing it. So it's like, yes, keep giving